Welcome to Reshair on ESPN 730. For the next hour, your host, Chris Reshair, will bring fresh air to your financial needs. Excite, educate, and empower you to make sound financial decisions. Chris is a seasoned licensed mortgage consultant with NFM Lending. Originator license number 117266. Now, here's your host, Chris Reshair.
Welcome to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshair, licensed loan officer with NFM Lending. Remember, NFM Lending is an equal housing lender. My license number is 117266. Alrighty, so you got to get through that detail there every week. The goal of the show is to excite, educate, and empower Charlotte teens to make sound financial decisions. Now, there's nothing I can really do to help you do that all by myself, but I do it with a team of people each and every week. And so we talk about real estate, finance, investing, insurance, really kind of anything related to your personal finances and hopefully how you can create wealth over time. I am a loan officer. We do talk a little bit about mortgage lending, but surprisingly, we don't really do a whole lot of that. We talk more about real estate and taking care of your home and tips to selling your home. Anything sort of real estate related is usually a general theme. So if you haven't listened to the show, we welcome you to the show. If you have listened to it in the past, we appreciate that. And I will point out at the top of the hour here that each and every week after we record this show, we pop it onto the reshairradio.com website. So you can listen to any show in its entirety out on the website. We even do podcasts, etc. So there's lots of different ways you can catch a show in its entirety with lots of different themes and topics. But I think really the best part about the show is bringing in expert contributors and special guests that really make the show super, super powerful. So what I'd like to do first is introduce our expert contributor, Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolina. Preston, welcome back, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris.
You doing okay today?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's a January day, and it's not snowing or not raining, so I'll take it.
That's right, yeah. It's definitely been a cool, I'm saying not necessarily cool, but a wet year.
Oh, my gosh.
Gosh, it's been so wet lately.
It rained for, I don't know, like 8 straight weekends. Because we can always tell, our phone rings for home inspections on Monday and Tuesday if it's a nice weekend because people are out looking at houses. Nobody wants to go look at houses when it's raining, and golly, it's like 7 or 8 weekends in a row.
Exactly. So what he's really trying to say is we need callers. We want buyers. We want people who need home inspection. So Preston, tell us a little bit about, I know you've been running Home Inspection Carolinas for many, many years. You're the founder and president, and you really run your business all over the state. But tell us a little bit about Home Inspection Carolinas, what your company does, et cetera.
Oh, yeah, cool. Home Inspection Carolina, we do home inspections, termite inspections, radon testing, and we're primarily in Charlotte, but we're expanding into Raleigh and Asheville as well. And, when somebody buys a house, it's usually one of the biggest investments. It's their dream, and I just like having a little small part of that, and we just want to protect them and make sure that they're not getting into something, going to get hit with some unknown cost afterwards. That's our primary duty.
You're really the surprise maker or keeping them from surprises? I don't know. It's all about surprises in your business.
Yeah, surprises in real estate aren't usually good.
Trying to avoid them for sure. So, well, obviously you offer a lot of services. I will point out that you've been a supporter of our show for a number of years. Just because you own a home already doesn't mean it's a bad idea to have you come out and check for some of these things if it's been a while.
Oh, right? Yeah. Maintenance inspections is a really good idea, because things like shower pans and things like that can start leaking. And, if you catch them early, it's not a big deal. But if it goes on for a while, it's going to be a rather expensive repair.
Let's keep Preston in mind throughout the show, those listeners out there that might need his services, whether you're buying, selling, or just an existing homeowner, and it's been a while since you had your home looked at. So let's go ahead and introduce our special guest here, Horace Bryan from Bryan Realtors. Horace, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, super excited. We spent a lot of time sort of preparing for today's show, and I'm just really kind of excited because you've really put a lot of thought and detail into what you want to share with our listeners. But before we sort of go into all that, I usually like to ask our special guests, You've been in the business, I think, since 2005?
Correct.
2005. So you've been doing this business for a while. You're licensed in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, probably Florida next when you're ready to retire. I don't know. But
it would be a great place to retire.
That's right. But tell us, how did you really get started in the real estate business? Because you do this full time now.
That's correct. So again, thanks, Chris, for having me.
Yeah.
Great to meet Preston in person as well. We do a lot of business together. So as you mentioned, I've been in real estate for over 20 years. Also worked in the financial services realm for many, many years. Moved to Charlotte in 2000 and realized when I came to Charlotte in 2000 that real estate would be a great career. Did it part-time initially and then started Bryan Realtors in 2005 and have been loving it. Been loving helping folks and being here in Charlotte.
Well, I think the key word there is helping folks, right? That's part of, I think, what we all do, even though we're all a component of that process. It's really, I take pride in what I do every day in helping that American dream come true for every particular buyer that I work with. It's, sometimes I'm more excited than the home buyer. It's like, are you crazy? Like, we just got you this house. And they're like, oh, thanks. I'm like, no, this is a big deal, right? But it is super fun to do that. So you've been in business in the financial industry. So how did you sort of shift into real estate full time? Because you said you started part time.
Yeah. So I realized very quickly that it's easier waking up every day when you work for yourself. So as I was doing real estate part-time and working in the financial services world, I just got to a point where I had so many relatives and friends and folks that were moving south to Charlotte, and the business really picked up. I enjoyed what I was doing. It sounds like somewhat of a cliche, but I really enjoyed helping folks buy what's probably going to be the single biggest thing that they ever buy, which is a house. It's bigger than a car. It's bigger than electronics. It's the single biggest thing that they do. And so it just became easier and easier to say, you know what, I want to wake up to do something that I love, and that's something that helps people realize a dream, which really is the American dream.
Which really just you kind of answered my next question, really, which is, what do you like most about real estate? But I'm hearing that, the flexibility, kind of owning your own business, and really at the end of the day, it's making that American dream come true.
And helping folks. Yeah,
right, helping people. So, I know that years before I was in the mortgage business, I was working as a school counselor, and I was helping kids over at West Charlotte High School. And it was a great 4-year run that I had over there. I really enjoyed my service. But there was something really super exciting about kind of controlling my day, right? And maybe not being part of such a big organization that impacts how you feel about work every day, right? Yeah. Having that autonomy to kind of run my own business. Now, I do work for a company, but a loan officer really is 100% commission professional, right? So
almost a business within a business.
Correct. Yeah. So they're not paying me any money to work there unless I'm out hunting for business, right? Building relationships with good guys like you. So before we wrap up this 12-minute segment, because it happens so fast, I want to give you a few minutes to give us your opinion on what you see happening with the market. I've spent the last, I think, 3.5 years running the show here. And every time we talk about the housing market in Charlotte, everybody's like, it's going crazy. It's going crazy. It's nuts. It's so busy. I can't keep up. But what are your thoughts today?
Yeah, Chris. So as you mentioned, I do business in quite a few markets, North Carolina, South Carolina, and we have a pretty big presence in Atlanta, in and around Atlanta. But I think the Charlotte market really is at a crossroads, and it's a good crossroads. Over the last year, obviously, we've seen that rates have edged up slightly. There's some talk, obviously, from the Fed that we're going to see a little more of that this year as well, possibly. I think that, we're seeing a lot more millennials that are moving into our market here in Charlotte. I see that in some of our other markets.
Yep.
And I think that if we're able to cater to them and understand their needs, that I think the Charlotte market really is on a plane to really have a really good and positive year as we look forward this year.
I would agree with you. I think we have seen the volume of business normalize.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the word.
I'm using
Absolutely.
very careful
Yep,
words
yep,
here.
yep.
Because
Well, it was so good for so long.
it was so busy for so long that when it's not crazy busy, people go, "Oh, the market is slowing down," and it's like, well, it's not really. It's really more normalizing, right? Because typically, when a buyer tries to buy a house in any good economy, that house, the number of homes on the market, there should be a 3 to 6 month supply
that's
of
normal,
homes.
yeah.
That's normal. We literally went 2-3 years with a 1 to 2 month supply of homes.
Yeah.
So we're now starting to edge back to where we're closer to the 3 month supply. So
Yeah.
I want people to really listen to our counsel here today, and that is, when you talk to the general public or you hear stuff on the news, people will say, well, the housing market is slowing down and rates are going up. And it very quickly goes from boom to bust. And that's not really the case, right? If you're not careful to pay attention to the real indicators, it's really normalizing. And I think what that means for buyers today who were bidding up and up and up and up on houses just to get them may actually now be able to shop for a home here over the next few years and maybe not compete against 10 people.
Yeah.
Maybe put an offer in and not have to push way above the price and then wonder if it's going to appraise. So I, like you, agree and say that the market is normalizing. I think Charlotte is still a good market, particularly.
It's a great market, Chris, and it's a great time to buy, a better time to sell. But I agree. I think you're seeing much more of a balance between the supply and the demand.
But so I think it's good news for buyers, maybe not as good news for sellers, but particularly if you're in that first-time buyer range, you're 250, 300,000 or under, where a lot of first-time buyers are buying today, it's still going to be competitive for a while. There's still going to be low inventory because there's just a lot of demand and really not much that's affordable in those price ranges. The builders aren't building stuff at 150,000, right? Builders today are starting home prices at like 280, 300 by the time you throw in upgrades.
It's crazy, man.
So the market is going to continue to get expensive, particularly for those first-time buyers. So it's going to be a good year. I'm excited. I think we're headed in the right direction for sure. So I appreciate your perspective. And obviously with you working in those other markets, you have a bigger perspective than the average realtor that we see here on the show. So, well, we got a lot to talk about. So I just want to remind you, you're listening to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar. And we've got our guest coming back up. And we're going to be talking about tips for the move-up buyer. And that means anyone that currently owns a home that's maybe bursting at the seams, wants to adjust, get closer to schools or closer to work, whatever it might be. This show that we're going to be talking about is all going to be about you. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Chris Reshatar, host of Reshair Radio and loan officer with NFM Lending. Is home buying in your future? Buying a home is one of the most significant financial decisions you will make in your life. Each step in the process is important to ensure a smooth transaction. But the most important step, even before you look at houses or call a realtor, is to get pre-approved. A pre-approval is when a lender evaluates a loan applicant's eligibility for a home loan. The loan officer collects information such as their employment, income, assets, and current expenses. The lender then gives the applicant an idea as to whether or not they could afford a home loan or an approximate amount of loan they could qualify for. If you're looking for platinum level service and open communication through the loan process, call me, Chris Reshatar, at 704-277-4463. That is 704-277-4463. LO license number 117266, corporate license number 2893. Go to nfmlending.com for licensing information, or you can apply online today at themortgagegenius.com. Hey, Chris Reshatar here with NFM Lending. Are you still sitting on a high interest rate mortgage loan? Are you thinking about consolidating, paying off some of those credit card debts, or maybe doing some home improvement? Now's the time to call because interest rates are still at a 40-year low. My number is 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. I can also be found at themortgagegenius.com. Movement Mortgage is an equal housing lender and MLS license number 117266. Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I am your show host, Chris Reshatar, licensed loan officer with NFM Lending. And as you know, we always bring on our show every week area experts and special guests. And this week we have special guest Horace Bryan from Bryan Realtors and expert contributor back Preston Sandlin. And our show lineup here today. And Horace, with your help, we've laid out a really fun theme for the show, and that's we're going to be really talking about tips for the move-up buyer. And what I mean by that, and Horace, you can jump in because you're really the real realtor extraordinaire expert here, not me. But my understanding is a move-up buyer is somebody that was previously a first-time buyer that's now ready to move into that second or even maybe third home. Perhaps your family size has grown. Perhaps you want to be closer to work because you're tired of the commute. Maybe you're looking for a different school system, and it could be a completely different reason. Maybe that you're ready for something nicer and newer because you've earned a better income and you've got some equity in your home.
Yeah, I think that's a great lead in there, Chris. So you're correct. It's usually an individual who's purchased a home before. Most instances, it's going to be an individual who's purchased their first home and are looking to purchase a new home for whatever reason. We can talk about those in a moment. But we also do have a lot of individuals who may, as you mentioned, be on their second or third home who are looking for something different. So basically moving from one home to the next. And you touched on it as well. There are lots of factors that can impact why the individual is looking to go from one level to the next.
Okay, cool. So let's, what are some of the ones that you identify?
Yeah, so, one of the first things that we want our clients to do is really think about what their motivation for moving up is. We ask them to ask themselves, did you get married? Did you move in with someone? Are you expecting a child? It could be something as simple as they got a dog, and wherever they are, maybe it's a townhome that doesn't allow a dog.
That's a great point.
Need
space. And you should buy a new house if you get a new dog.
Right. Yeah, of course, right.
We should all hang out at the pet store. That's a strategy there.
Just got a referral at the pet store.
That.
Right. Who bought a dog, right?
Yeah, hadn't thought about that.
And then the others that, come to mind pretty easily is, someone may just simply want something that's bigger. Maybe there's an amenity in that house in a new home that they're looking for. Maybe it's a bonus room. Maybe they've had kids and gotten married and need something different, or looking for different schools. So there's a multitude of reasons, but we start at the very basic, which is, what do you see in that new home as you're looking forward? Right? What does that nirvana look like?
I just had one not that long ago, and they were moving because they didn't like their neighbors.
Oh, wow.
It could be as simple as that.
They didn't like their neighbors,
Yeah,
so they were selling and buying a house.
Was that my neighbors?
You did move out of my neighborhood. Maybe it was you.
Was that Preston next door? Yeah.
I've learned that maybe we should hang out the pet store, the maternity ward, or what's the
Where else? I don't know.
Those are the hot spots.
Yeah,
Schools,
yeah.
right? Hang
Weddings.
out at the hospital.
Weddings, yeah.
So very good. I mean, definitely, obviously, we're going to kind of roll out the tips at this point. We're having a little bit of fun here. So let's get specific here and, kind of lay out what the tips are here we have for the move-up buyer. So the number one tip here that we have rolling out this morning is determining the time frame of the move in and move out, or move out or move in. Usually it's the out, then the in, right? I got that backwards. So talk to us about tip number one and planning that timeline.
Yeah, so, we call this scenario kind of the perfect storm of real estate, right? You've got all these moving parts. You have to sell a house, you have to buy a house, and so all of these stars just have to align perfectly. And so it's really about looking at what that time frame looks like, and that's really where we come in as realtors. I've seen some things where people refer to us as real estate consultants, and that's really is what you're doing. You're building some rapport, you're consulting, you're allowing individuals to understand exactly what that time frame looks like. So the first step, to your point, is what is that time frame? How do we help you determine the selling timeline? How long will your house take to sell? And then leading into what does the time frame look like for buying? And so that's really where we come in assisting folks.
And I honestly would jump in and say you really oftentimes are your real estate counselors. Because anytime you move, period, right? You still have to work your job. You're still taking your kids to soccer. Like, your life doesn't change, but then all of a sudden you have to move everything that you own out of your house, and you're doing it until like 2:00 in the morning, and you have no sleep, right? And you're like, oh crap, I didn't pay that electric bill, and you have so many more details to manage that that you end up doing therapy with your clients. I mean, I really respect.
Absolutely. You manage a lot of marriages, Chris.
You do, exactly. And so I think that the tips for the move-up buyer is...
Tell me about your mother.
Yeah. Tip number one, Richie, which is, the time frame, is you really need to have this discussion with a professional realtor and let them help you bear that burden, because the realtor's role is to help you through that process. All right, so let's go to tip number 2. And you say is start preparing the current home to be sold.
Absolutely. So in most instances, individuals have to sell their existing home in order to buy the new home. That's not always the case for everyone. Some cases, people will rent it out or move a family member in.
Or they can qualify for 2 house payments.
That's correct.
Right? That's a luxury.
Absolutely. That's the exception and not the norm, but we've seen many people who have been able to do that. And so we try to get our folks to try to keep their eye on the prize, which is, I have to sell this house and I have to do all of those things that are needed in order to sell that house. And some of those things could include staging the house, obviously cleaning, decluttering the home. One of the things that we've been seeing much more of is this potential for repairs or renovations. We've been trying to explain to our clients that there really is a benefit to having a home inspected. We call it a pre-inspection before you sell it. And obviously with Preston here, I'm sure he can add some color to that piece of the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely, Horace. Pre-inspections are a great idea because, sometimes when deals go sideways because of the inspection, it's because 2 parties made a financial compromise. Then they did the inspection that has financial implications, and neither person wants to compromise twice.
Absolutely.
And if you could find out those things ahead of time, you probably could get multiple bids, and maybe get it done but you find out the cards on the table and you don't have that surprise on the back end, and it just keeps deals from going sideways. And I think it's a great idea.
All right. So, and I'm just going to kind of recap there so our listener can connect with us. So since we're talking about the move-up buyer, and we're kind of, one of the tip number 2 was really kind of get your house ready to be sold. What you would do as the seller, not the buyer, right, is you would call Preston from Home Inspection Carolina and say, hey, we'd like your team to come out, inspect this house, just to see what maybe is going on with the property, if there's any issues with the HVAC system, or we have an issue with water in the crawl space, whatever it might be. You can predetermine those things before you list the home for sale and address the repairs and get lots of bids on your own timeline, get fair bids, not be under the pressure of a contract and a buyer nipping at your heels. And then going in, hey, before we list this home, we've addressed the issues. This house is in good shape. Go ahead, Preston.
Can I add one little thing to it? The elephant in the room with pre-inspections is, though, that the seller does it and does all these repairs, and then the buyer comes in with their inspector, and they find a whole lot more stuff, and now we got to do the repairs twice. That will happen, but what we're trying to do is just find the major items that could kill a deal. I think set expectations. Home inspection is a subjective thing. But that inspector is going to come in and find, some rubbing doors, but that shouldn't kill a deal. Right. If there's ever anything major that that first inspector missed, they should refund their money. So we're just looking for the major things that could cause the deal to go sideways.
The W2, what is it? WD-40/duct tape can fix that. All that stuff.
Are you sure you haven't been talking to my neighbors?
Yeah, and I think I love kind of what both of you are saying. I mean, I've seen us lose too many deals to home inspections, and I like the idea, and I've seen how positive it is to actually have it done up front, and you know what you know up front, and you address it up front. Yeah. But to Preston's point, chances are the buyer is still going to do a home inspection, but you would hope that those larger items you have addressed up front, and you're not going to lose a deal over those
right
issues.
Right.
So
that's why I always try to set expectations, because I can guarantee you that guy's not going to come in and say, oh, it's perfect.
Exactly. All right, let's roll to tip number 3. It says, look at the school calendar.
Yeah, and so what you'll find is that many sellers are, especially if they've got small kids, are tied to a school calendar. And what that means is that, we're going to see it in the next couple of months, where a lot of homes are going to start hitting the market, sometimes around spring break, but definitely during those summer months, May and June. And so we really try to manage our sellers' expectation that many of their neighbors' homes are going to hit the market. They're going to have a lot more competition. And so in some instances, there's some value to listing a little bit ahead of that. But we always want to keep the school calendar in mind, whether you have kids or not, because that's going to actually impact your pool of potential buyers, as well as other sellers who could hit the market as the summer warms up.
Perfect. Okay. And then tip number 4 is actually plan time to look for the new home. So while you're selling, you still have to plan time to look for the new home.
Yeah, and that sounds, pretty
basic.
But we have folks who are on both ends of the scale. We've got those folks who are spending so much time preparing their existing home that they're not thinking about the new home yet. And then we have folks who are off and running, ready to put an offer in on a new home, but really haven't prepared their existing home for sale. And so
seems like the latter is more common to me.
That's what I was going to say. I told my wife, we're not even going to look at a new home until we get this thing under contract.
Yeah. And, and again, sometimes it's the difference between him and her, the wife and the husband. But we want to try to keep everybody on the same page and understand that it is a balancing act as it relates to time in between selling and buying.
Well, that makes perfect sense. So, we've got a lot more show to talk about here, but we're running out of our 12-minute segment here. We got to take a quick break. Again, you're listening to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar, and we are talking about tips for the move-up buyer. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Chris Reshatar, host of Reshair Radio and loan officer with NFM Lending. Is home buying in your future? Buying a home is one of the most significant financial decisions you will make in your life. Each step in the process is important to ensure a smooth transaction. But the most important step, even before you look at houses or call a realtor, is to get pre-approved. A pre-approval is when a lender evaluates a loan applicant's eligibility for a home loan. The loan officer collects information such as their employment, income, assets, and current expenses. The lender then gives the applicant an idea as to whether or not they could afford a home loan or an approximate amount of loan they could qualify for. If you're looking for platinum level service and open communication through the loan process, call me, Chris Reshatar, at 704-277-4463. That is 704-277-4463. LO license number 117266, corporate license number 2893. Go to nfmlending.com for licensing information, or you can apply online today at themortgagegenius.com.
Did you know it has been reported that an estimated 80% of Americans have credit inaccuracies on their credit reports? Most people that have either inaccuracies or existing items that can be negotiated or adjusted do not know what their best score could be until they have found a new home, or buying a new car, or applying for a credit card. Then it's too late, and they have to accept a higher interest rate or lose the opportunity altogether. The time to work on improving your credit score is before you need it. Whether you have a 440, 640, or even a 740 FICO score, there is always room for improvement. The National Credit Care Team is comprised of individuals dedicated to helping the millions of consumers plagued by credit inaccuracies, errors, and fraud. It is our mission to help inform consumers and alleviate the stress of working with creditors and credit bureaus. Together, we can maximize your scores to get the best interest rates possible and save you money. Call now, 303-747-6390. That's 303-747-6390. Or visit us at www.nationalcreditcare.com.
Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshatar, our licensed loan officer with NFM Lending. And we've got here Horace Bryant with Bryant Realtors and Preston Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolinas. And we've been talking about tips for the move-up buyer. Really, that just basically means anyone that's owned a home, that's getting ready to buy their second or third home. There's all kinds of things that you got to think about, moving parts, things to balance. And we knocked out 4 major tips, but we're going to pick up maybe where we left off here, Horace. And sure. One of the tips that you suggest is for the current seller, right, or that move-up buyer, to have you come and do what I call a market analysis, and have you come and do a free consultation. Maybe you could explain that in your words. I'm dancing here.
Sure. So I think you hit the key things. It's exactly that. We will come in. It's a free consultation. And we obviously will look at all the other homes around them. What have they sold for? What's on the market? And we'll give them a really strong feel for what we believe their home would sell for. Now, obviously, there's no exact science to this, but we're going to use our best experience as well as the data that's out there to try to give them a feel that a similar home in a similar condition, what we believe that their house would sell for. And we call that a market analysis, or they may hear it referred to as a CMA. And that's really one of the key things to value in their home.
Perfect. So once that step is done, the next natural step or tip that you have listed here is really to have then the home evaluated for readiness. What I mean by that is, yes, you can come out and do the consultation, but there's a lot of things that the seller has to think about to make sure that the house is ready. What are some of those components?
Yeah, sure. So we need to make sure that a buyer who comes to a home can see themselves in that home, right? And in some instances, it means, unfortunately, that you've got to take down, great aunt's homemade vase that's sitting in the middle of the table, or that picture that's sitting on the wall from your ski vacation somewhere. So
dogs playing poker.
That is where we'll do it, right?
Kittens and clowns.
Right. So we want to make sure that as much as you love your furniture and you love the way that your home sits, that buyer can see themselves in there. Right. And in some instances, folks are open to hearing that directly from me or one of my agents. And in some instances, they're not. And so we will bring in a stager, and these are individuals who are licensed to do these things. And, it's funny, we've seen some cases where the stager will say exactly what we said, exactly the same words.
But they'll listen to
the stager. Yeah. So we're okay with that.
Right.
I just thought of something while you were saying that. Imagine if you got a hotel room, you rented a hotel room, and you walked in there and there were pictures of the owner's kids and there were personal items and stuff.
That's good. Yeah. You'd be like, what's the deal?
This seems like somebody else's room, not mine.
That is a great example. I've got to use that. I think that's a great example. You wouldn't be able to see yourself sleeping on that bed.
Yeah. When you go into a hotel room, it's very neutral, you can see yourself. But imagine if it was a lot of personal trinkets and, looked like a Cracker Barrel exploded in there or something, with all the knickknacks. You wouldn't want to stay there.
It's a great point. It's a great point. So it goes back to staging. Again, we can do some of that very light, but we're happy to, in most instances, bring in a professional stager. And then the other pieces that go in hand with that are the decluttering, cleaning, which is kind of basic. We might ask for the carpet to be cleaned. And then obviously we talked before in your last segment to Preston as it relates to kind of the importance of that pre-home inspection. So those are kind of key components of having the home evaluated and getting it ready and prepared to sell.
Exactly. So what about, you mentioned an area too about cleanliness and so forth.
Yeah, so look, we all live in our homes differently, and as realtors we understand that. Many of us have kids, we have pets, and those are two different things, guys, kids and pets, by the way.
Not in our house.
So,
well, your pet shouldn't be your kid.
Right, probably
That's just me.
Probably not. So we understand that you have to live in your home. We understand that life continues even when you're trying to sell your home. But we also want to make sure that when somebody walks in that home again, that there's not a truck sitting on the floor that somebody can trip on. That the pet here has been vacuumed off the couch. That the dog isn't running around. That he's at the daycare for the day. So we understand, as I said, that life continues and it doesn't just stop simply because you need to sell that home. But we ask for our sellers to be realistic and try their best to do those things that we suggest, because ultimately our goal is to sell that home as quickly as possible for the most amount of money that we can get you. And if those little things can contribute to that, I would hope that most homeowners would be willing to take our advice there, Chris.
Perfect.
Good stuff.
Another area that you say should be evaluated is areas that may need repairs or renovation. So what would you share with our listener there?
Yeah, and some of those things are items that the homeowner knows. Maybe underneath the sink, they know there's been a drip under the sink for for for
years,
a year, right? They've seen it under there. Maybe they know that the door doesn't close perfectly, and so some of those things we know that the homeowner knows. We can work with them, to help them find a handyman, and this is someone that can probably come in and knock out what we call low-hanging fruit. These are easy things that can just be done to aesthetically improve the home, and then in conjunction with what Preston's team or a home inspector comes in and finds, we can get those larger items in addition to those small things done to get that home ready to be showed and sold.
Yeah, and you're going to go in also and say, you know what, it's been 30 years. Some of this we might want to update now because I can get you a lot more money for the house than if we don't, right? But you're the consultant there. So really, that tip number 6 was really have your home evaluated for readiness. That includes staging, the cleaning and decluttering, looking at repairs and renovations, and the pre-inspection that we talked about. So, all right, let's roll to tip number 7, which is get qualified. And maybe I should have you read this one. Get pre-qualified before you list your home for sale. Why is that important?
Yeah, so again, you want to know what your buying power is, right? You want to know, we don't want to take you out and show you a $300,000 home when you can afford a $250,000. Or the other side of that coin is maybe you have a lot more buying potential than what you actually think. So we look at what we think your house can sell for and your pre-qualification, and that guides us towards that perfect home for you. So they go hand in hand. I'm sure, Chris, you can talk a little bit more as well on kind of the mortgage side, balancing buying and selling and what's important there as well.
Yeah, I think, I can remember vividly I had a realtor reach out to me and hand me a referral, and he said, I'm getting ready to list this house for sale, but I told him, look, we need to get something from a mortgage lender first. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times the seller isn't thinking, well, I better talk to a mortgage guy because I'm getting ready to sell my house. Mm-hmm. Right? It doesn't seem like a logical step. And I remember vividly, it was a referral down in Monroe. And I called the guy, we got the information, and he ended up having a 400 credit score.
Wow.
Oof.
And not only did he not sell, he wasn't going to qualify for the new house, right? So it saved the realtor a lot of time and energy from having to go through all these steps that we've just talked about because it was going to be a move-up buyer, right? Mm-hmm. And we've more focused on how to get that guy's credit back on track so that he could then turn around and buy in the future. So you just never know. Sometimes there's a collection that could show up on your credit report that could drop your score that you never knew about. Things can happen, and so you don't want surprises. And you want to be prepared also as you go into the new offer, especially in a competitive market, that if you haven't done a lot of your paperwork and gotten your pre-approval, then it could affect your ability to get the new house too. Absolutely. So you have to be prepared. What usually happens is you see the house you want to go see, you call Horace and say, I know you got a house on the market, but I found the new house. And you say, well, did you call our team at NFM Lending to get qualified like I told you 3 weeks ago? And they go, well, no. And now it's Saturday, right? Now we're usually available on Saturday. But the point is you want to think about this process really at the front of the time that you're thinking about selling.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Get that duck in a row too, especially before you box up tax returns and W-2s and throw them in some moving truck that you can't get to. So a lot of reasons there. So let's move on to... you also mentioned something about the key for most buyers is selling their existing home. Why don't you talk a little bit more about, keeping their eye on the price? What does that mean?
Yeah, so again, and we've alluded to this, we know that most individuals are going to have to sell their existing home in order to buy the new home. And so we want to make sure that they are keeping their eye on the prize, which is that sale. And integral to that are a couple of things. One is we want to make sure that they're keeping that house show ready. Again, you have to live. We understand all of those things.
Kids and dogs mess up a house in 2 seconds.
Kids and dogs. We understand that you may get that last-minute showing request, but you've got to try your best to try to keep that home show ready. Something as simple as a curb appeal, right?
Okay.
Make sure that the lawn is mowed. Making sure that there's mulch outside so that people can kind of see themselves in the home from the outside even. accept showings. We're going to do as much as we can to drive traffic to your home, whether that's online or printed media, which we still do, believe it or not. But we want to make sure that as we're getting those folks to your home and those showing appointments are coming, that you're trying your best to accept those.
There are times when actually somebody that wants to sell their house says, well, I'm too busy, or the house isn't clean, and then they actually deny people from coming to see their house. It sounds kind of crazy.
I've seen it.
See it a lot. Look,
so that's what you mean by accept showings.
Absolutely.
Let people in. Keep your house cleaned up. Have it ready. It's the best that you can all the time.
You're right on, Chris. Look, it takes one person to put an offer in on your home, and maybe that person is a potential buyer. Mm-hmm. If we could see who that person is ahead of time, we would go and find that person, but it takes one person. So, and then the other point, Chris, is consider all offers. There are good offers and there are offers that are not as good, but just consider all offers, especially based on what the market looks like.
Perfect. All right, those are some good counsel there. We're going to roll out to some of our last tips here, but we actually have to take one more break before we wrap up our show. So again, you're listening to Reshair Radio, and we are talking here today about move-up buyer tips, things that you really need to consider before you sell your home and as you prepare to buy the next. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Preston Sandlin with Home Inspection Carolina. We do home inspections, termite inspections, radon testing, any of your inspection needs. One thing that we do a little different, we fix the small stuff instead of putting it on the report. So if you need a home inspection, termite inspection, radon testing, please give us a call. If it's a home inspection or a pre-inspection, 704-542-6575, or check out our website at homeinspectioncarolina.com.
Welcome back to Reshair Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshair, licensed loan officer with NFM Lending. And we have had a great show, guys, here so far. We've been talking about move-up buyer tips for someone that already owns a home that may be wanting to buy that next home here with Horace Bryan from Bryan Realtors and with Preston Sandlin, expert contributor from Home Inspection Carolina. So, Horace, I think we've got through 7 tips so far. We've got a couple more to knock out. So I'm going to pick it up where we left off so we can have a nice full show here.
Right.
You say tip number 8 is to be aware, right, that local markets may vary, and it can be very different from when you bought your home years ago. So talk to us about, so if they're trying to move up buy a new home, if that person hasn't been in the buying and selling market for 7 or 10 years, you're saying they need to be aware. What do they need to be aware of?
Yeah, Chris. So things change, and the real estate market definitely changes from year to year. Again, this is where we as realtors would come in and be able to give a lot more guidance about exactly where the market is today, which again would be very different than 7 years ago. It may be different than 6 months ago here in Charlotte in specific neighborhoods. And so we would assist that individual with guiding them and making sure that they understand what's different. For instance, how quick will it take, could it potentially take for you to sell your home? Mm-hmm. That's a key ingredient of looking to buy as well. If it's going to take my home 3 months to sell, maybe the person is buying a home and that they're going to build. Maybe it takes 4 months to build. So these are all key ingredients of understanding the local market. And obviously, I call it somewhat of a balancing act,
Sure.
Meaning that you are balancing the sale, meaning that we want to try to get as much money on the sale as possible. But then you also have to think about, you may be doing great on the sale, but you may not do as good on the buying side.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Meaning that, you may be overpaying a little on the buying side, depending on what's going on with the market as it relates to inventory. And so it really is a balancing act. There are also certain areas in and around Charlotte that may be hotter than others. Mm-hmm. There are certain lake communities or certain golf communities.
School districts.
School districts. Yeah. You're right on there, Preston. That may operate as somewhat of a smaller sub area within the Charlotte area. And then also it's important for folks who are looking to buy that they may be, they may need to look at writing an offer fairly immediately, which makes folks somewhat uncomfortable. But if you're sleeping in a seller's market, it's going to hurt you if you're looking to buy a home. So those are all kind of key ingredients of understanding the local market and understanding the fact that things may be very different now versus, years ago when you last bought or sold a home.
Right. Yeah, and just that awareness is super important because there are differences in local areas of Charlotte, and it may be very different from when you bought and sold
Absolutely.
a long time ago.
Well, and there's also information that Horace might know. Like they're getting ready to build something here that could either increase your property value positively or negatively, or
Sure.
they're getting ready to put a landfill over there. That's why you need someone like Horace to because he's gonna find out and research all these things.
Alrighty, so I think we're on the very last tip here. Tip number 9 is work closely with your realtor on timing the new purchase with the sale. So I know we kind of touched on some of these throughout the show. You say here, make sure that all required repairs are done on the sale. So wait a second. I had a pre-inspection and I did all these repairs. What are you talking about repairs done before the sale?
Yeah, so again, keep in mind, as Preston had touched on, chances are that you did the right thing by doing this pre-inspection. You've kind of checked off and fixed all of those larger issues. But we know that there's a strong potential that the buyer is also going to have a home inspection completed, and there may have been some things that were negotiated on that end as well. Hopefully there's small things, but we want to make sure that we've got everything covered and all those repairs have been done.
So follow through with that remaining sort of punch list.
That's correct.
All right. The next one you say is make sure all required repairs are done to the home you're buying.
Yeah, again, I keep saying this.
So that's like holding the seller accountable
the new home.
on the new home you're trying to buy.
That's correct. And that's why I keep saying this is the perfect storm, right? You've got all of these. You've got repairs on your home. You've got repairs on the home that you're buying. So we want to make sure that all the repairs on your new home that you're purchasing have also been completed. Right?
Absolutely.
And in some instances, we've had cases where on the buying side, we'll send Preston and his team back to actually re-inspect that home. They're going to go back and look at the original report, and they're going to make sure that those repairs were actually done correctly. And that's usually money well spent, because I wouldn't know if the insulation in the attic was fixed or if something behind the wall wasn't done correctly. So we'll send Preston and his team back out just to re-inspect, just to make sure those things are done on the buying side.
All right. The next one you say, under kind of working closely with your realtor here to time the sale and purchase all at the same time, is to solidify all lenders are ready to go. What's your definition of that?
Right. So on your sale, you want to make sure that the buyer's lender confirms that their mortgage is looking good and that they're going to close on time. And then on the buying side for you, for your new home, we need to make sure that we check in with NFM and make sure that the mortgage there is good. So again, and you're also staging these closings, right? So do you close on the same day? Do you close on the sale and the buy, which is very difficult to do? So you've got to make sure that
do you use the same attorney? Do you use different attorneys?
Correct.
Right.
A lot of moving parts. But then again, that's where having a realtor that you're confident with and lenders who are good at what they do and communicate well.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to jump in here and say we have a transaction that our team here has been working for probably 2 months now, and our buyer's loan has been final approved and cleared for close for over a month. But her buyer, right, because she's a move-up buyer, her buyer's loan was having problems, and we have to keep extending the interest rate. We've moved the closing date like 6 times now.
Wow.
So on our side of the deal, I was actually calling the realtor and the mortgage lender on her buyer's transaction because we don't know our timing without knowing their timing, right? So there's a lot of moving parts. And we've been ready, right? It's just the buyer's side hasn't been, and it's going to work out, but there's a lot of moving parts there. So, all right. Another one that you say is be prepared for some stress, right? So
cortisol.
Yeah.
I know this was a stressful show to plan for, a lot of moving parts, right? But yeah, I mean, you're living this. That's the thing that people forget about is we can talk about it here and try to prepare you if you're thinking about moving up into another home. But, you have to rely on good professionals to take care of it. And you have to expect that there are going to be times when you may lose it. And a lot of times, myself and Horace, we'll be there to hold you together.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've had clients cry on the phone. I've had clients get frustrated, angry, you name every feeling in the book, right? And it's not necessarily always personal. Sometimes it's just that there's so much to manage that, it will tax you.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Chris. Yeah.
And then the last piece, you say communication is key.
Absolutely. It's as easy as that. We're always talking. In today's high-paced world, you can text, you can email, you can call. I'm sure there's some stuff you can do in smoke and clouds, but you really have to make sure that you are speaking with your clients and that you've got really great open communication.
Yeah, I think my thought in addition to that is you have to work with professionals who will communicate good and bad.
Yeah.
Because what I see a lot in this industry, and I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, is that someone will say, well, this lender promised this X, Y, and Z. And I say, yes, but you have to call the 1-800 number to get to that company. And when something goes
in that
south,
extension,
right, and the realtor is not allowed to talk to your lender, right? Nobody's allowed to talk to your lender but you. And then when something goes awry, are they really going to pick up the phone and communicate, hey, we've hit a wall, here's how we're going to solve it? A lot of times I've seen experiences where they don't get any communication back. And that's just the worst thing ever. The worst thing that a professional in our industry can do is hide. Absolutely. When there's bad news. You got to deliver bad news quicker, actually, than good news, right?
Great point. Chris.
So that's part of communication. So we are actually just got a couple of minutes here left. So what I'd like to do is, Horace, you had mentioned that you'd be interested in, for anyone that references that you were on this show, Reshair Radio, this particular show talking about move-up buyers, that you're willing to give a special incentive.
Absolutely, Chris. So for any of your listeners, as you said, that makes the reference to the show, I'll provide a $500 realtor credit towards their closing costs on the purchase or listing of a current home.
Right. So if you're buying, great. If you're selling, great. Awesome.
I'm going to add that if somebody does business with Horace, whether it's a buyer's inspection or pre-inspection, we'll do $25 off through this month in February.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Awesome. No, it's great. So appreciate those incentives. I know that listening to a radio show doesn't always compel you to pick up the phone, but let me give you my phone number and I can connect you to my professionals here in the studio. It's area code 704-277-4463. That's 704-277-4463. Again, you can listen to the show in its entirety by going to reshairradio.com. And Preston, with you being an expert contributor, why don't you just pop your number out to them so they can call you about an inspection?
Sure. It's 704-542-6575.
And your website is?
homeinspectioncarolina.com.
homeinspectioncarolina.com. So, Horace, thank you so much for being a guest on Reshair Radio. I think you are a pro for your first time, man.
I think he told us he'd never been on. I was like, I think he's like one of those pool sharks, Oh yeah, how do you play this game?
I appreciate that, guys. Good to meet Preston in person as well. We've done quite a business, and thanks so much, Chris, for having me.
You're welcome. It's going to be the Horace Air Show next week, right? So as always, for those of you that are faithful listeners to our show, thank you so much. If you were just tuning in today for the first time, thanks again. We are on every Sunday morning, ESPN, The Game, 730 at 10 a.m. And again, you can find us on the reshairradio.com and give me a shout if you have any questions. But if not, we're good for now. You all have a great week. Thank you very much. Hi, this is Chris Reshair, host of Reshair Radio and loan officer with NFM Lending. Is home buying in your future? Buying a home is one of the most significant financial decisions you will make in your life. Each step in the process is important to ensure a smooth transaction. But the most important step, even before you look at houses or call a realtor, is to get pre-approved. A pre-approval is when a lender evaluates a loan applicant's eligibility for a home loan. The loan officer collects information such as their employment, income, assets, and current expenses. The lender then gives the applicant an idea as to whether or not they could afford a home loan or an approximate amount of loan they could qualify for. If you're looking for platinum level service and open communication through the loan process, call me, Chris Reshaar, at 704-277-4463. That is 704-277-4463. LO license number 117266, corporate license number 2893. Go to nfmlending.com for licensing information, or you can apply online today at themortgagegenius.com. Hi, Chris Reshatar here with NFM Lending and host of Reshair Radio. If you are considering purchasing a home, you may wonder what your financing options are. We offer a variety of loan products to fit your situation, including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, and jumbo loans. Here in the Carolinas, some of the most common loans are FHA and USDA. FHA loans are popular in low-income and first-time buyers due to their less stringent requirements. They also have low down payment requirements and tend to have a lower credit score requirement as well. USDA loans also allow low and moderate income households to purchase homes in an eligible rural area. Home buyers who do not qualify for a conventional loan may be able to purchase a home with USDA. If you're looking for platinum level service and open communication throughout the process, call me, Chris Reshatar, at 704-277-4463. That is 704-277-4463. LO NMLS license number 117266, corporate NMLS license number 2893.